Hi everyone. For this talk, I would like you to notice how you're feeling in your body. And to also notice when you might have moments of feeling uncomfortable, or maybe even want to hide your emotions. But don't worry, we're going to start off easy. So I need your help for a second. Could all the people who feel young please raise your hand? All right. And all the people, please, who are left-handed, please raise your hand. And all the people who have a chronic disease and feel healthy today, if you feel comfortable, please raise your hand. Wow. So what I just did was divide you into different groups. That's how we usually treat the members of our society. Either you are young or old, either you are healthy or sick. That's how we categorize. My question is, what are the consequences of those labels, and especially the labeling of healthy and sick? Could all the people on this side please raise your hands again here? Everyone. That is about, thank you, that is about every second person in this room. And according to the Robert Koch Institute, every second person in Germany will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lifetime. And of course, all the people here know someone around there. That means cancer takes place in the middle of our society, but not in our society's mind. We ignore it. We look away. When I was bald and puffed up like a pufferfish during my chemotherapy, when I walked down the street, people switched to the other side of a road. And that hurt. It felt like I was infectious and also helpless. For the past 13 years, I've been a patient advocate, a support group leader, and a psycho-oncologist, and I want to share with you why I think looking behind a mask is better than looking away as a response to a crisis. What do I mean by looking behind a mask? Basically, confronting what feels very, very scary and coming out closer to yourself on the other side. I want to share with you that I feel a bit humbled and nervous standing here in front of you. Me, a random guy talking about having cancer, yet who has the privilege to stand here as a so-called cancer survivor. While probably all of you here have your own experiences with cancer. Perhaps you had a diagnosis yourself, perhaps you lost someone you love, or perhaps you know someone who deeply suffered from having cancer, who didn't have the chance to look behind the mask. So thank you for your courage to face this topic, something that actually connects us all. What's my cancer history? When I was 16 years old, playing volleyball was the world for me. But sometimes, not often enough, when I set the ball to a player, it felt weird in my left arm. But I ignored it. And later on, I joined the military for 8 years, thinking I was immortal like everyone else around me, and I had better things to worry about than my health. But the pain came back more and more. In 2011, when I was 24 years old, Jesus, what a time, I finally went to see the army doctor. He took an X-ray and he directly sent me to the university hospital. A week later, I was there for a biopsy to see if it was cancer or not, and I was a little anxious. The doctor came to me and said, Mr. Witte, by the way, you can say goodbye to your left arm, but I suggest you look online for an artificial limb. You can live life pretty well with it. A minute later, he left my room, and I was alone. Alone with thoughts like, why does he leave me alone right now? I mean, isn't that a life-changing situation? I'm 24 years old, and he just said that I probably will lose my arm. And more important, how long do I even have to live? But guess what? I am still alive, and it was cancer. And here's my left arm. a bit shorter than the other. Some people call me T-Rex, but still there. And as you can see, a little laughter makes it easier to talk about serious situations, because the main character of laughter is not to take away the seriousness, but rather to lift the heaviness. Speaking about heaviness, I had several lung metastases in 2013 and 14, and most recently in 2023. You're probably familiar with the term cancer has spread. The metastases were all treated by surgery. Usually you treat them also with chemotherapy, but they found out that my cancer cells aren't sensitive to it. And that is good and bad. Good, because getting chemotherapy and spending half a year in the hospital sucks. And bad, perhaps there are still some cancer cells forming into a tumor, and there is no medical treatment for it. So technically speaking, I'm still a cancer patient. And I'm curious if that makes you look at me in a different way, through the mask of a sick person. What is a mask? For years, for thousands of years, people have been using masks for a spiritual ceremony, for a connection to a higher nature. Kids love to play with masks of their favorite comic heroes, or even adults do. Masks are more than just a physical object. Masks are a creative tool. With masks, you can highlight different aspects of your own personality, or you can hide completely behind it and be anonymous. Even cancer cells wear masks to bluff our immune system. Usually our immune system is smart enough to detect mutated cells like search and destroy. But cancer cells are some badasses. They add some good-looking surface proteins so that they don't get identified. I also wear a pretty comfortable mask in the first years after my diagnosis. I tried to make having cancer as easy as possible for me and my social environment. I acted like it's not a big deal, I can handle it, I'm the boss. I avoided almost every realistic thought about how bad is it? What could possibly go wrong? And that is not handling, this is surviving. And that is all I was capable of at that time. About 5 years after my diagnosis, I started realizing that the world around me had become pretty gray. I couldn't feel deep joy nor deep sadness. I mean, I was okay, I had fun, but some deeper feelings were missing. When I think about the time, I see a scared Carsten hiding in a cave. Outside that cave, there's danger, but there's also life. I needed to drop the mask of pretending to be okay and leave that cave and throw myself back into the lake of opportunities and try to be brave. But how? The first step for me was towards acceptance. When I began to give up an idea of myself, this immortal, all-knowing, almighty Carsten, actually to drop the mask of being okay, I began to find a version of myself who's also lovable. And I mean the love we need to give ourselves in the first place. Hands up, who also comes from a household where talking about problems wasn't normal? So I had to start a conversation with myself about my issues. And I'm pretty bad at talking with myself, to be honest. I needed another way, another method to explore deeper feelings. Feelings like loneliness or belonging. And it was like some higher nature hurt me. In 2017, there was a dance project at Freiburg. Women affected by cancer dove into their experiences with the disease, with mastectomy, chemotherapy, isolation, and the loss of trust in their bodies. And I was envious, because it was for women only. It played for 3 years and was always sold out because it touched a nerve in society. And the funders in the theater were quite open to do another show, but not so open to do a show with men. Because not only do men not dance, they don't express their feelings, and especially not through their bodies. And here are we back to the labels and stereotypes. And I knew it was exactly what we needed. And after much hesitation and skepticism, we finally won them over and the show was made. But there was something much more important for me than the show itself, which was the 9-month rehearsal process. 17 men between the ages of 16 and 70 met weekly in the theater for 3 hours to get to know what our body is capable of, how to soften and stretch and play and explore many physical states as a way to channel and express emotions and begin to face trauma. Since my childhood, I built a framework that I hold on so tightly, and during that project, it finally began to collapse. How freaking scary that was. Most of the time we didn't talk. Our bodies became instruments to communicate with. Our bodies don't need no words. Often at the end of each rehearsal, we were asked to write about different topics, such as our experiences with isolation or manhood. And the sharing after it was just magical, and I'll tell you why. No one judged anyone. Everyone was seen and accepted as he was. Just us, our experiences, sometimes painful experiences, appreciation, and no masks. I wish this would become a way we treat each other in society. A society where showing emotions is embraced as a strength, rather than perceived as a weakness. And being able to cry and showing emotions is a powerful resource. Anger is a resource too. See? Anger is an energy that reveals what's important to you in your life. And for being angry, I love to join a football game. You go there, you shout for 90 minutes, blow off some steam, your team loses, but somehow you feel better. Because sometimes it's just a beer, some good friends, and your favorite football club that heals you a bit. Actually, there's something that we can learn from being in a football stadium. The connection for why we are here and should support each other. In the stadium, it's clear. We love football, we go in the stadium, and we love our team. But what is our connection outside the stadium? Some have to fight existential challenges like cancer, and some happily are just fighting for new followers on Instagram. That is a wide range, isn't it? I like the thought what connects us all is the pursuit of joy and pleasure. The river we are all swimming in together, the flow. And here's the thing. People with cancer get disconnected from this flow. If you focus on the things that separates people with cancer from the rest of the world, they feel more and more disconnected. For years, people who knew me always greeted me the same time. Again, "Hey Carsten, how is your arm?" I mean, what the hell? I'm more than just my sweet little T-Rex arm. I know people were trying to be well-intended, but it became tiring only to be reduced to my reduced arm. What I like so much about the thought of joy and pleasure is that it is totally individual and relevant in each period of life, and especially at the end. Together with my 2 friends and colleagues, I run an association for young adults with cancer. When I founded it, I was pretty naive, luckily. But we had to learn that keeping up a community for people affected by cancer is no football club. We deal with suffering and injustice and vulnerability. And talking about joy during palliative care may seem pretty weird for you, but it is not. If it is weird, then tell me. When is the last point in our lives that we allow ourselves to be happy? What I learned from my friends during their last days is that they have no problem asking for help and support. A friend of mine, he just asked me help him pee in a bottle. As easy as that. Another one's last wish was to meet a monkey, and we almost had time to realize her last dream. And recently, a friend of mine asked me record an interview with her for a little daughter, for when she's older, to remember her mother's voice. So I ask you, why do we wait all too often, ask our fellow humans for help until the end of our lives? If you don't wear a mask, you have nothing to lose. I want you to notice one more time how you're feeling in your body. How is your breathing? Are there some emotions you try to push aside? There is one last thought I want to share with you, which is my personal guideline for how I want to treat myself and the people around me. It is not easy to translate it to English, so I will first say it in German. Was ist, das darf sein. Und was sein darf, wandelt sich. What is allowed to be, and what is allowed to be changes. When we give all of our demons and angels on our shoulders the permission to be there. When we meet each other halfway because deep encounters arise outside of our comfort zones. And when we are brave as Simba, the Lion King, who said, I laugh in the face of danger. Then we see how beautiful we are behind the mask.